Hello and welcome to yet another showing of Before the Campaign, the show that takes a look at all the big talking points of Scottish football before the big season kicks off in mid-July. Today we look at Dundee appointing James Mcpake as the new manager, Celtic appointing Neil Lennon as their permanent manager ahead of next season, and Liverpool's good guys as they lift the Champions League trophy. I sincerely hope you enjoyed today's episode and feel kind enough to hit the like button, because if there's one thing I love, it's that community interaction. So hit the like button, comment down below and subscribe for more, and enjoy today's programme, folks. Right lads, on today's show we're starting off with Dundee appointing James Mcpake as the new manager, and what that might mean for them going into next season, and what it means for them right now in the present, considering the candidates that were up for grabs in the role of Dundee manager, and what it kind of has meant for what they've said before they appointed James Mcpake as the new manager. So basically, obviously Dundee parted ways with Jim McIntyre at the end of the season there, after he had one of his first wins in a while. I think it was away to Livingston or something like that. They won 1-0 and then they parted ways with him after that. And then obviously James McPake took over against St Mirren and he lost 3-2, despite Dundee not exactly playing horrendous throughout that full game, and they were on top on a couple of occasions in the game, but they ended up losing, right? They came out with a statement at, I don't know, it was probably about a month and a half ago. It was definitely before they made the managerial appointment, of course. I think it was around a month and a half ago. And in that statement, they went on to say, recently we had changed our philosophy of bringing on younger, experienced managers to ones that had over 300 matches in charge and a win percentage at a level of around 40%. So fair dues there. They're choosing to go with managers now that have far more experience and have a track record. So, fair enough. We then take into account what else they have achieved, saving clubs from relegation, winning trophies, and how they have managed the recruiting process. At that point we will have narrowed it down to a handful from well over 100 applicants. Very few applicants make it on this list, as they do not meet the criteria. So on the face of that kind of wee mini statement within the big statement there, it's fair dues. Dundee looking to go from appointing inexperienced managers to appointing someone with vast experience, has a certain amount of games under their belt, and has a decent enough win ratio to go off of as a successful candidate. However, to then go and appoint James Mcpake as your manager, who has 0 win ratio and 1 game experience as a manager, it's maybe not the best look to go for when you've just said that in a statement about a month ago. You went from having Jim McIntyre, who, albeit didn't do a good job at Dundee really over the piece, so rightfully probably got the sack from the job, but appointing James Mcpake instead of alluring someone like Jim Goodwin, albeit he probably doesn't have as much as 300 games in charge, and if I'm being honest, I don't know his win ratio at Alloa, but Jim Goodwin was obviously the more outstanding candidate from the outside looking in than James Mcpake. To me, it seems like quite a, again, inexperienced appointment, like they said they were kind of starting to go away from. So I'm not entirely sure what the kind of situation is there. I've read reports that Gordon Strachan will be coming in as a kind of technical director of football type role, so maybe that kind of balances it a bit, with having James Mcpake as the inexperienced one and Gordon Strachan above him as the kind of experienced head. But it's just a bit weird, because I would have thought that Jim Goodwin would have been a stick-on for that job, and I think a lot of Alloa fans were just expecting him to go anytime soon, especially when it was coming out in the general media that he was coming in for interviews and stuff like that. He was definitely up there, and there was definitely truth in the rumours that Jim Goodwin was in for the Dundee job. But now he's going to go back to Alloa for next season, and I've no doubt that he'll do a decent enough job with Alloa once again, because he's that type of manager that will always keep a professional head on. But I think Dundee have missed a trick. I could end up being proved really wrong, because having James Mcpake and Gordon Strachan, it isn't the worst case scenario. They've got a guy who loves the club in James Mcpake there, and they've got Gordon Strachan, who is an experienced head within football and Scottish football, of course. So it won't be the worst, but I just think that it's a bit of a weird one. But we'll see what happens over the course of the season. I'll be able to see it very closely because they'll be in the Scottish Championship. So I'll see you next season, lads. Let's see how it all works out. Next up, we're going to talk about another managerial appointment, and that is Neil Lennon being appointed as permanent Celtic manager. For my wee notes on this bit, I put the title as Lennon Ain't It, Chief, because I just think that he isn't the one. He isn't the one for Celtic. I think it's a very just meh appointment. I think, going for Brendan Rodgers, probably up here. And yes, he left in unceremonious circumstances and ended up down here in many Celtic fans' opinions, and the reputation that he built, which was way up here, is now way down here. But bringing in Neil Lennon, yes, he came in with a reputation of around about in the middle of up where Brendan Rodgers was and in the middle. But then appointing him as permanent manager, even after winning the treble, it was sort of expected for Celtic, regardless of who they brought in the interim. And I think they were all looking for a change in the summer, or at least the vast majority of Celtic fans. And as I said, that reputation that he came in with of being in the middle of upper echelon, I think it has slightly slipped since he came in. I don't think Celtic fans have been impressed with the football that he's put on show, and I just think that it's a bit of a sideways appointment. And I think that Rangers were going to come closer and closer to Celtic in the next couple of seasons regardless, and I think it's just opened the door a bit wider for Rangers, if I'm being quite honest. I think that Rangers have now got the momentum going into next season, and yes, Celtic are the cream of the crop really, because they've just, as I said, won the treble, 8 titles in a row. You can't really say a bad word about them, except from this appointment, in my opinion. As I said with the Dundee one, you need to wait and see, because Celtic, as I said, are still pretty much the cream of the crop in Scottish football. They're still winning everything, and you should expect them to go on and do it again next season. But I think it's been put up a bit in arms with this appointment of Neil Lennon, because Celtic fans overall, probably 75-25 split, maybe a bit less than that, maybe about 65-35, but I don't think it's the most positive appointment Celtic could have made. I don't know any realistic options they could have made, because all the names that were getting put about, I didn't entirely give them a lot of credit, like Rafa Benitez, Andre Villas-Boas. They're names that were probably far too much, but I don't think Neil Lennon was the right choice. And this Celtic fan, on a Celtic fan form, I think rounded it up quite nicely. He said, "See all the folk that are giving it the good Celtic man gets the club. That's like saying I should be put in charge of Microsoft because I like using Word." I thought that was quite funny. When I read that, I thought it was quite poignant, and I thought it actually hit the nail on the head. It's like saying, get the basic guy in just because he loves doing what he does. And Neil Lennon's came out recently and said that he wants to end his career at Celtic. Well, I'd want to end my career in my dream job as well. It's just plain and simple. I think it's a quite mediocre appointment. And finally, this week we're going to move on to the Champions League and talk about Liverpool's good guys. Now obviously, you know who I'm going to be talking about. I've just looked up at them there. Bobby Firmino and James Milner. Bobby Firmino is your cool guy type, and I just love the guy. I love how effervescent he seems. He seems like a class guy to be around in a dressing room, in a football environment. He just seems so open to laughter and having a good time. And then you've got James Milner, who epitomises everything that is kind of like me. I'm a very kind of boring and lackadaisical kind of guy when it comes to the whole partying scene. And this quote for James Milner, coming straight from the horse's mouth, I think that it kind of sums up both him and how I would be in that situation as well.
What's the party tonight then? I mean, I remember asking you after you got through in Rome what if you'd have a glass of red, and you said probably I'll take a cheeky Ribena. What's it tonight?
Might have to be somewhat fizzy and go a bit exotic. I don't know, lime and lemonade or something.
I don't drink fizzy juice. I've barely had a sip of any type of beer lager, anything. I've just stayed away from it in my time on this earth, and I don't intend on really having much of it in the near future. So I think James Milner, as I said, epitomises everything that I would be in that situation. And to round this point off, here's a picture of Bobby Firmino, and here's a picture of James Milner celebrating the Champions League victory. And I think Liverpool massively deserved something for this season, and to be honest, I think both these guys did as well. They're kind of the epitome of hard tryers in a team and players that go underappreciated. These two men, they deserved it more than anything. Congrats, boys. Congrats. And that's it for today's show. I'll now hand you back over to the presenter. And that's a wrap for today, folks. I really hope you enjoyed today's programme and feel the need to come back next week for more Scottish football talk on Before the Campaign. Cheerio!